Are we on? Hangout is on live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bunto. Does America Matter Anymore? Hangout. I just want to say I mostly love Nadia. We have a great panel tonight. We have Green, we have Lou Pliskin, we have Pyong, and we have Shamos. And I'm your host, Bunto. What we're going to talk tonight is we're going to be around the topic of industry in America. But first, we want to delve into the worthwhile subject of how money works as far as prestige in our country. Lou, talk about people that have an inordinate amount of money. How do they derive their self-worth in our country here, America? Lear jets, gold-plated, this and that. Go ahead.
Oh, as you mean like as the individuals that have the money?
Yes, that they have power and political prestige.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's gotten to the point to where they have so much money that it's like owning nice things is no longer good enough for them, and now they got to own the entire government or entire nations or whatever is the new status for the ultra rich.
Okay, tell me some more things about the ultra rich, please.
Well, I don't like the blanket statement, all of them, because some of them are actually nice people. They just you got your Bill Gates types, and they actually are philanthropists and try to give back to their communities, but they're kind of rare. Most of it, I think, the old adage, power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or whatever it is.
Like the Koch brothers.
Yeah, like them. Yeah, I just think I don't know if they're born a sociopath or if there's like a such thing as late onset sociopathy.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Pyong, should people go towards money or should they go towards, let's say, fulfillment in the religious concept?
I can only speak for myself. Between those two, I would go for money.
Oh, why? Is it more practical?
Right. I've never seen. I haven't seen sufficient evidence to make me think that religion is valuable. So between money and religion, I'd go with money.
Shamos, what's your take on it? Please.
Well, I always thought that after I became a Christian, what if I won the lottery and got like
Right.
$40 million? Like, because I know it's wrong to keep that much money, and I would love to think that I was like, yeah, I'd just give like $1 million to my mom and just donate the rest to charity, and just be broke my whole life and not really care about it. But I don't know if I would actually do that. I don't know if anyone knows what they would actually do given that kind of choice. But I know what the Bible says about it, and I know what I would like to do. But
Right. Well, okay. Which do you value more, Scripture or Revelation?
Scripture. It's more reliable.
Okay, Scripture. Okay, we have the story in Matthew, right, about the eye through the needle?
Sure.
Could you go ahead and tell our audience that one, please?
Sure. A man comes up to Jesus. He's a rich man, and he comes up and says, "Good teacher, what do I need to do to be saved?" Jesus turns around to him and says, "Well, you know the 10 Commandments." He says, "I've kept them my whole life." Jesus says, "All right." And he knows. Well, I won't do any commentary. He goes, "Okay, you know the 10 Commandments? Then sell everything you have and follow me." And the man turned around and hung his head in shame and walked away. And Jesus said after that, he said, "Verily I tell you that it's harder for the rich man, or it's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to go to heaven."
Okay. So by that scriptural reference, is it not incumbent upon you to hand over your money to the poor?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's not so much to hand over your money to the poor, but he's making the moral lesson is basically some people commit idolatry with money.
Okay.
They hold money up to such a high place that they're unwilling to let it go.
Okay. Green, does that make psychological sense to you in any way? To give rather than keep?
I think you have to keep something, but I think you could actually keep on giving. I think like if you had money, you could actually live a spiritual life.
All right.
It's all contingent upon how you spend it.
Does that parable make sound sense to you, or does it have some problems with it?
If it's taken to the extreme, it won't make sense. But if it's taken like a balanced level, I could definitely see it could make some sense.
Seamus, is there any balance in that parable, or is it, as Green would characterize it, an extreme?
Well, see, personally, I don't think the parable is about, sell everything you have or just, give up all of your money. I think the real lesson is, don't,
Worship money.
yeah, don't worship money. Don't make it your master, and don't sell out your morals for money.
Okay.
So,
Do ultra-rich people here in America worship money?
well, there's this guy. We were talking about this earlier in Nadia's Hangout, and I'll leave you with kind of this quote. Basically he's a Christian apologist. He's pretty famous. His name is John Piper. And
Yes.
he says this. It's real short. He says, I don't think it's unchristian to make a lot of money. But I do think it's unchristian to keep a lot of money. So I think that's the distinction. I think that you can make a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at a point where you keep a lot of money, that becomes a problem. I would say you need to at least give most of it away.
Okay, Green, let me ask you this. Why do so many religions eschew money, personal wealth?
Well, I think religion is contingent upon all cultures. They do talk about, it's just natural. Every religion, I believe, they talk about money. Every spirituality talk about money because it's such a big part of our lives.
Okay, well, let's take the Buddhist monk. Okay, he gives up everything and just has an orange robe and a begging bowl because he wants to align himself as closely with the reality that's dealt with him.
Correct.
All right, do you take that as an extremist position or a position that makes sense?
I take it as an extremist position. However, I'm not here to determine that. I think people who want to do that, can, but they have to understand that there's responsibility to other people around them, family, kids.
Right.
But I don't think as a whole, Buddhism doesn't recommend that you do that.
Okay.
That's something I think probably in Hinduism, I know later on when a person gets old, and some do this where they'll go out in the woods and meditate, and they're at old age, and they will die there. But as a contingent practice within Buddhism, I don't think that's something that they recommend. But I'm not a Buddhist, so I couldn't really tell you.
Okay, Lou, do you find any of that philosophy attractive to you?
The Buddhist philosophy?
Yes.
I don't. I've looked into it a little bit. I'm not going to say I know a lot about it, but I don't really think money or wealth has anything to do with the actual philosophy of Buddhism, because it's really centered around the self and like the individual's place in the world and just being aware of your impact on the world.
Okay. You're a soldier, correct, Lou?
Yeah.
Could there be Buddhist soldiers? Or would it completely wreck their philosophical religious outlook?
I think it's contradictory to the foundational philosophy, but if we look at history, there's been there's Buddhist nations go to war too.
Right.
So, it's just like any other religion. You got that dichotomy or whatnot.
Okay. Do you think if you weren't a soldier, you'd still have the same amount of self-worth in our society that you feel now?
I would say if I was never a soldier,
Did you gain by being a soldier?
I'd say I would have more self-worth if I was never a soldier.
Oh, seriously? So there's
Yeah.
some okay, how does that work? please.
When you see enough terrible stuff in the world, it has an impact on you. Just an example, I mean, beyond the actual combat, there's the atrocities that you see. I saw American citizens torturing POWs and stuff like that, and I was powerless to do anything about it, and that has had a major impact on my life.
Right. Okay, Frank, your experience, if you care to share. If not, that's fine.
Well, I think a lot of times we were trained to look at the other side as not human, devalue, and definitely I could see where Lou's coming from. There's things that in the military where I learned and, was able to, experience certain things. However, I was just lucky that I wasn't in combat, so it's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, okay, so you didn't have any degradation of self-worth because you're a soldier?
Well, I think it was about the same when I came in and when I came out.
Okay, so
Yeah. No, I again, my experience in the military was different, but I could definitely see how, you view others and with suspicion and paranoia, definitely. And some of those aspects weren't very helpful for me.
I see. Shamos, did you ever want to be a soldier?
Actually, no. To be honest
Why not?
with you, I'm scared, I guess.
Were you ever like pressured or to be a soldier? Family
No,
members, teachers?
no.
Okay. Pyong, any thoughts?
No, not really, Big Daddy.
Okay, well, let me see. Well, okay, there's self-worth there of being, a very rich person or being a very religious person or contributing like somehow to the state like a soldier does. Can you guys think of any other ways of you know, claiming self-worth in our American society in the 21st century?
Yeah,
Like, go ahead.
yeah, America's just so twisted right now. I think more.
Are you proud to be an American?
Oh no, not from after everything I've learned about this country. Um, I don't want to abandon my country. I want to fight to make it what it should be.
Okay.
And that's actually where I get a lot of my self-worth from, because
Okay.
I've seen the very worst, and because I have experienced that, I mean, I try to use my voice to say, look, these things are wrong, and we need to change it.
Right. You share your wisdom with your fellow citizens.
Yeah.
Does that make psychological sense to you, Green, to share your wisdom with fellow citizens?
Of course. I definitely believe you should talk about it.
Talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
To instruct, people.
Not to instruct, but to inform.
To inform.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with instructing people of important matters? Is it like just too coercive, too straight to the point?
Well, instructing unless people are asking for it.
Right.
Okay, if they ask for it. Not to say like, to a room full of young men, it is a mistake to join the military. You should rather inform them, say, this can happen to you in the military.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Definitely.
All the ways that people can add to our society through, law, through, helping the industries, helping, taking, altruistic things, helping people medically. What of the people that do not contribute at all to our society? Do you still feel any empathy for them, or should they get the hell out of here?
Who you want to take that? Me?
Anyway, let's go down the line. How about you, Lou? Should we get rid of these dead weights in our society?
Oh, you want me to go first? All right. No, that's exactly why we have government for there to ensure that there is no dead weight. That's like billionaires right now are dead weight because we have bad laws. But if we had better laws that made them pay their fair share for the common good, then they wouldn't be dead weight. They might not like it, they might complain, but they'd still be billionaires.
Right.
So
So you want to take the whole body and make it healthier instead of just start cutting stuff off.
yeah.
Pyong, should we start making the body healthy, or should we start cutting off stuff that's already dead?
Making the body, well, aren't those the same thing?
Okay. Can you see some benefits to cutting off, diseased parts?
What's a diseased part?
Let's say certain individuals that never have contributed to society. Eventually, they end up in prison. Eventually, they end up killing somebody.
Oh, well, if I could
Habitual criminal.
conclusively know that somebody was going to be a murderer, yeah, then you don't want them around. But the point is that you can't see that, and we're all part of a human society, and you never know who's going to pull it out for you. When you cooperate with people,
Okay.
and you're in a situation, sometimes somebody you don't expect is going to really help out and make the difference. So
Habitual
No,
criminals that have like 50 felonies on their rap sheet,
what about them?
shouldn't they be removed from our society once and for all?
Oh yeah, okay. Which crime?
Let's say it's this building on a state thing from theft all the way to aggravated assault.
Uh-huh.
And these people are, let's say at least, over 20 felonies, okay?
Okay.
And they are surely going to, within the next couple of years commit another major felony. I mean, shouldn't we just finally get rid of these people?
Kind of preemptive strike there?
Well, I mean, didn't we have something called the 3 strikes and you're out laws?
Yeah, some jurisdictions have that kind of thing.
Well, what was the
Sentencing
thinking
guidelines.
behind that, please? Just for our audience's sake.
I don't know what the thinking was that they wanted to get rid of criminals. If you're a somebody who makes laws, that's why I was saying it's a one-way check valve with regard to leniency toward criminals.
Okay, I
It's not
believe
politically. Yeah, go ahead.
did 3 strikes and you're out come out in the first Bush administration? That's what it was
No,
really.
I
Was it
don't
Reagan?
know. I'm not. Yeah, possibly. I mean, there was a dramatic expansion of prosecutorial power when Rudy Giuliani. I don't know if you remember this, but Rudy Giuliani was in the DOJ.
DOJ.
Yeah, the Department of Justice, and he made considerable amount of policy in the DOJ, and one of the things was the mandatory sentencing guidelines. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yes,
So-
go ahead and just explain to our audience if you could quick.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's probably pretty familiar with it. It removed the capacity of judges to mitigate a particular sentence. So and the sort of what you're talking about. I mean, it's not really what you're talking about with three strikes and you're out, but it probably occurred around that
along
time.
those lines. Is that a bad thing, Pyong, for society?
Yeah, well, that was a bad thing because I think a lot of people consider that a bad thing. I consider it a bad thing because they took the power away from the judge,
Right.
and they gave it to the prosecutor. Now, essentially, if you're prosecuted, or if a prosecutor brings a case against you, you're looking at a sentence, and mitigating factors aren't brought into play. So it removed the power from the judge and essentially gave it to the prosecutor because it's all played out anyway.
I might not frame this question right. Was that a fair reaction that the prosecution or people had, or was that just Rudy Giuliani? So far as them getting tired of these habitual felons and wanted to get them removed from our society.
Oh, I don't know if it was effective at all. It was just, it's political. That's
It was political.
right. Yes, it was political and hard on crime. That's popular, and it's never politically expedient to be soft on crime. That's why the sentencing always goes the one way.
Okay, my state, Texas, I believe has the highest death row
Yeah.
executions in the country.
In the
Okay.
world.
In the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a reaction, Pyong? Or is that actual good policy? Or some sort of coherent policy?
I my personal, I understand and I empathize with people who are against the death penalty. But I always look at all crimes from the perspective of the victim.
All right.
So I'm a little bit, a little bit stricter in what I would allow.
For
But
punishment.
the problem is not, in my view, that the death penalty is egregious. The reason I'm not ultimately for the death penalty is because we have an imperfect system.
Okay.
And so you have, like in my own state, or the state I was licensed in, Illinois, we exonerated, I don't remember how many it was multiple death row inmates on the basis of DNA evidence. Now I have to mention one caveat. Sometimes that DNA evidence just creates doubt. It doesn't necessarily completely exonerate them.
Mitigates, yes.
But because that's a fact, I don't think it's worthwhile. I mean, that's one thing you can never take back, is once you kill somebody, they're gone. So.
Okay, if the system was perfect, could you see a point to the death penalty?
Yeah, I think there are some situations where you're dealing with such a monster like John Wayne Gacy, for example, or
Henry Lee Lucas.
yeah, and a lot of times these guys just they confess to it.
Right.
Matter of fact, most successful prosecutions are the result of confession. So,
Okay,
excluding
so
the plea agreements.
there are some dead parts of our society we can cut away.
All right.
Okay, Shamos, are you for the death penalty?
No,
Why not? Religiously based or personally based?
a little of both.
Could you extrapolate, please?
I just, I don't want any of that blood on my hands.
Yeah. What do you think, Lou?
I'm kind of, the way I explain it to people, I try to explain it as I'm against the death penalty as it stands. And I think as a lot of us here are saying, if it was more fair, more just, as in we didn't have the vast amount of innocent people being executed, if we had let's say 99% of the time the people we executed were actually guilty of what they were charged with, and there was only maybe one in a very long time, a person that happened to be innocent, that I would accept. Anybody else want to add to it?
Yeah, that's the first and foremost, is how it stands, and then later on I think we could probably try to deal with it.
Yeah, because I'm firmly of the opinion some people cannot be fixed, and some people do things so horrendous that we have no reason to keep them around and waste money feeding and housing them.
Yes. Well, let me ask you, Green, is there any sort of, is it healthy for psychologically for society to have the death penalty? A recourse, as a recourse.
I don't think the death penalty does anything.
Okay.
It doesn't stop anything. It doesn't, but I don't.
It's revenge?
I think it is in the form of justice, and this kind this type of topic of how we should treat criminals in a sense. It's a big thing. I follow the deterministic view that those things are going to be taken into account, but there has to be definitely responsibility. But I'm more about rehabilitation than punishment.
Um,
Oh, okay. Do you remember the Dukakis election when he ran against Daddy Bush? I don't know. Maybe you're. Yeah,
Yes,
they brought it up in the debate where they said they murdered Kitty Dukakis, raped and murdered her. Would you still be for the death penalty? And then Michael Dukakis said no, he wouldn't. Is that the stance that you would take if your loved ones were murdered? Would you still be against the death penalty?
yes, yep.
I mean, how could you explain that, please?
Because I think social justice should be objective. It shouldn't be something subjective out of emotion. This is why we have laws.
yeah, it
All right.
shouldn't be based off of one person's emotions.
Correct.
Can I get geeky on this subject?
Sure, go ahead.
As I've read the book. It was one of the most boring books I've ever read in my life. It was a Jeremy Bentham. I forget the title, but he is basically the grandfather of our modern criminal justice system. He designed the prisons. The way we build our prisons all come from that one person's uh, works. And he was a utilitarian. And
Okay.
killing somebody is wrong. It does a wrong in the world, and no matter if the person deserves killing or not. But by the principle of utility, what you have to measure is eliminating the amount of wrong that criminal is going to do greater than the wrongness of actually killing them. So that's how I look at it, and I remove emotions from it. I've had family members and people close in my life that have been hurt really bad.
Yes.
I've had to stand in the witness stand for them, and emotionally, yeah, I'd want to kill a motherfucker, but we don't make decisions as a society based on our emotions, or we should not.
Okay. Shamos, you've just heard the dissertation of utilitarianism position on the death penalty. Does God condone the death penalty?
Does God condone the death penalty? I don't
Does
think
God
so.
want the death penalty?
I don't think so.
Is there any scriptural reference for him not wanting it?
Well, I would say, for example, like in the Lord's Prayer where it says, forgive us of our debts if we've forgiven our debtors.
Okay.
It's basically saying, in order for you to be forgiven, the prerequisite for that is to forgive.
I see.
So, yeah, that's
So
probably my...
if you were counseling somebody who's had a family member murdered, you would say, you must forgive your murderer?
Well,
You know,
I would say that's what Jesus says, yeah.
Okay. How about you personally? Do you see any problems with that outlook?
Yeah, of course, it's not something that comes very easily to somebody, and it's a lot of emotion involved. I mean, you know what I mean? But I mean, I'm just
Would you
saying.
feel like your allegiance to the Lord is tested in such a case?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Pyong. We must remove subjectivism from all sorts of justice. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, so we can have subjective feelings within our justice system.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
Well, nothing. The Have you ever heard anybody say it's not what's true, it's what you can prove?
All right.
And a lot of this theory about, what is necessary in putting together or codifying punishments is just is completely subjective. There is no objective way to know, how valuable vindication is, or
Okay.
is it possible to rehabilitate someone, which I think is less and less in vogue anymore.
Okay.
There is the subjective benefit of punishment where it eliminates feuds and that sort of thing, where people are taking the law into their own hands, and then also It facilitates these platitudes where somebody can say, "Oh, I forgive my, the person who did me wrong." And I think one of the primary reasons that people can come to forgiveness of that sort is because the state is taking care of it for them. So, yeah, there's a ton that's subjective in it.
All right. When they execute the mentally disabled or retarded individual, right? It's for the sake of the crime they did, not for any. It's subjective why they're doing that. It's nothing objective. No reason to, hide anything other than killing a mentally defective person.
I don't know. I think that's kind of irregular to put a retarded person to death,
Right.
right? Or
And
a
they have
person
done it.
whatever mentally. Yeah, sure they have.
Arkansas, Bill Clinton did it, and Governor Perry did it. There was another person who they ascertained was in no mental shape.
And how did you tie that with subjectivity?
Well, how can I say? It's sort of like you want to have proper justice, right?
Okay.
And the way I tie it into subjectivity is sort
What's
of like
justice? What do you mean when you say justice?
well, you want to have a proper outcome in order to resolve a crime, that was being committed. So, if you execute a person who does not know, because I remember the person that Bill Clinton executed, he had his last meal, and he saved the cake because he says, well, after the execution, I'm going to come back and finish it then. You know what I mean? He did not know why. Yeah, it's a sad story. He did not know that what the execution was about. He was mentally incapable of understanding it. See what I mean? So he, in a way, of course, cannot be accountable for his crime. In a way,
No.
he couldn't mentalize it.
No.
Himself. He himself cannot, have a mental accountability for his crime.
What you've just verbalized is the basis of what's the insanity defense, which is an affirmative defense that indicates an individual lacks the mental capacity to form what's known as the mens rea. I mean, if
mens rea.
The way they would describe it in a first-year criminal law course. In order for an individual to be culpable for committing a crime, they have to have the criminal act and then the intent, if you will.
Right.
And so somebody who could lack the capacity to understand what they were doing was wrong would never be subject to culpability. You see what I'm saying?
Right. So, okay, go on, please.
Well, that's so something's rotten in Denmark with your story.
Well, okay, this is what happened. That retarded individual did not know he was going to be executed that night, so it leads one to believe that he did not understand his accountability for the crime. See what I mean? I mean, of course, yes, they did kill him, so he did pay the price for his crime, but he himself did not know that he was paying the price for his crime.
It could be an exaggerated jailhouse story, too.
Well, I believe it's veracity. He saved the cake because he says after the execution he was going to come back and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
See, he did not realize that he was going to be executed.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it's sort of like, well, if they do execute mentally deranged people and people that are retarded, we have to realize that these people have no idea of why they're being executed. Can I, stand on that position?
Well, it depends on the level of mental retardation. I mean, I want to say again, like I said, I'm not necessarily. Matter of fact, the reason I'm not for the death penalty is because we have an imperfect system.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Okay, well, how about that, Green? What's your take on the execution of somebody who's mentally deficient or does not even realize that they're going to be executed?
This is one of the reasons why I, look at the criminal justice system as flawed in the sense that they're taking, not taking other things into account, the mental status of the person. And definitely we should have responsibility, hence, but however, if the person's not capable to have the
wherewithal,
mental capacity, the cognition in order for them to even function in society, then how much responsibility do we have? Of taking care of people who are, in that spectrum. So That's really due to the failure of society itself.
Okay. So do you believe our society has failed?
I failed that person, yes.
How about in the general, as far as taking care of our mentally deficient and deranged people in our society? Could we be doing a better job, or have
I
we
think
deteriorated?
definitely we could be a better job. Yeah.
And killed it.
Say again?
Right.
Reagan killed
That's
our.
what I've heard.
Yes, I believe that.
The reason you have homeless, crazy people roaming all across America is because Reagan canceled funding for mental institutes for those kinds of people.
Why do you think he did that, Lou?
Oh, because it's talking points for campaigning. Because all you got to do is say, "Look, I cut the budget."
Okay, so it's purely political motivation.
Yeah.
Pyong,
I think.
would you agree that's just a purely political motivation to cut off funding for the mentally ill? I guess he went off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, gonna look at metrics for the budget. Make it look like they're doing something. Pulling up. It's just an accounting trick. Yeah, terrible.
Well, apparently we claim that we want to take care of the body of America. We want to heal it and make it better, but we're not going in that direction as a country. We're going to more libertarian ideals, I guess I'd characterize them more. Every man for himself type ideology. Would you agree, guys, or would you feel like that's an overstatement of the direction America's going in now?
I think the sense of centralized power, too much centralized power, I think, kind of makes things very impersonal.
Too much bureaucracy.
Correct. That and, greed, of course, and the corporate state. These things go hand in hand. But I look at centralized power, and especially for a country like this that hasn't been really doing too well, especially during this time. I think we have to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more flexible.
Is there such thing as the American dream still, or is that just hogwash?
There's a dream. I don't know about the American dream. I don't even know what that means, but
American dream used to mean that there was always a chance for prosperity if you played your cards right in America.
I think that should be around the world. It shouldn't be just for America.
In
That's
America,
right.
we've shipped out all our manufacturing base. We owe China. China owes. They own our debt. We have a budget that's going out of control. I mean, has America run off the rails?
I think as a society we did. We can't just blame the government, but we have to really look at ourselves and what we really wanted out of a life. Just to make a quick buck, I think maybe we've been conditioned in a way where, financial gain is probably the best thing, regardless of what, the fastest way to make money, pyramid schemes and things of that nature, without looking at long-term consequences of things.
That makes sense, but is that the way America thinks now?
No, it doesn't.
Lou?
To get back to the original thing on if things are getting better or worse, I think that too is like an oversimplification. You got to look at every metric, but the simple answer is I think once you add everything up, all the good and the bad, that yeah, we are definitely heading downhill on a well-functioning society. Yeah, this, like everybody else has said, with centralized power and centralized wealth and everything. But it's not all bad. Like right now in history, we have the lowest violent crime rate ever.
Okay.
So, despite all the wars going on around the world, this is actually a point in human history where we're at the lowest point of war in the world too. So,
No, I didn't know that.
yeah, despite all the wars we're in. So yeah. So it's like not an all or nothing thing, but yeah, I do think we have a problem with centralized power and people, too much power being put in one place.
I see.
Yeah.
Pion, do you have a problem with centralized power?
Do we have a problem with centralized power?
Too much bureaucracy?
Well, bureaucracy doesn't mean centralized power. I I guess it depends on what position you're in. I'm sure that that has probably led to certain problems. Centralized power. It's just the way it is. You know what? I see the way that the United States is, and I think it'll be fine for me.
Right.
It's in a slow descent. I think it could be changed. I don't think that that we have systemic problems that won't be changed, can't be changed by our politicians. So we're kind of in a controlled descent, and hopefully things will stay stable for the duration of my life.
Okay, you say we're in a descent. Is it because the amount of law that we've created?
No,
Created too many laws?
no.
Why not? Couldn't it be a correlation?
Well, when you say we've created too many laws, then you have to tell me which laws you think we've created that we didn't need. What exactly are you talking about? What
The
laws do
law,
you think that we
okay,
have that we don't need?
well, okay, at a high point, what would you say was our high point? If we're in a slow descent, what was our last pinnacle?
Um, we have removed certain controls that we had in place, like after the Great Depression, for example. There's one I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Glass-Steagall.
Yeah, last
And
week.
yeah, just as an example. So that's one law that we removed to keep in with what you're talking about. That was damaging. And Lou, am I correct when I say that it allowed the depository banks and the investment banks to merge?
Yeah,
Was one
eliminated.
aspect of that?
Yeah, it basically turned banks into casinos.
Right. Yeah. Well, I understand what you're talking about with regard to derivatives, but yeah, the depository banks and the investment banks were allowed to merge, and that was a law that the elimination of it was damaging,
Right.
and I don't think anyone would argue that it was not. So that was a lesson that we had learned, and then the powers that be. That was actually under Clinton that they eliminated that law. Um, so you can't really blame that on George Bush. And it also goes to show it doesn't really matter which president, the brand of the president that we have in office right now. He was influenced by a fellow named Larry Summers and Rubin, and well, I guess Alan Greenspan was in there too, you know, and
What I'm trying to
Paulson was
ascertain
probably
is
there.
that
Hmm.
at what point were we at our pinnacle?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Probably maybe 20 years after the Industrial Revolution, I guess.
Alrighty. That we were pretty secure in our trajectory, that we were upward, and then the next direction we took went downward.
I don't know. I guess. Is that the way you say?
Yeah, pinnacle.
Okay.
I actually
Okay.
put pinnacle at the Clinton era, despite
Okay.
bad things he did as far as where our nation was sitting. We had we were almost at like full funding for education. We had sex education in schools where it needed. We had clinics everywhere for women, so women had full control over their bodies. And our national debt was actually eliminated, I think, for a short time period.
Well, it wasn't the deficit.
Or the deficit.
Yeah. So the
Well,
debt
no, we
was
had a budget
frozen.
surplus. At the end of his term, we had a budget surplus.
Yes, but that we had a budget surplus in that revenues exceeded what was
Correct.
ostensibly being spent, but the debt still existed. It was just that it wasn't being added to.
Right. We were paying down the debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So now we're on a downward descent, right? What I'd like to know, what caused it? Is it like the libertarians say that we have a centralized government and too many laws, or is it because other reasons?
Special interests shaping foreign and domestic policies.
Okay.
Lack of control by citizens.
Apathy?
Corruption, money, and I don't think it's apathy. I think it's more, money in politics, that sort of thing. got a couple of bad breaks in some Supreme Court cases, and now it's just the way it is. And I'm not talking about necessarily Citizens United. All that was a ridiculous. Do you know the Koch brothers are going to spend almost $1 million? I'm sorry, almost $1 billion. $1 billion on political free speech for 2016.
Wow.
So, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about an earlier. I can't remember what the name of the case was, but it was this New York State case, which allowed corporations, business entities, to begin to give political donations, and the Republicans got on board first with it, but eventually they all did, and so, yeah. But anyway, I think the biggest part is special interests shaping foreign and domestic policies.
Okay, the reason America's going downhill is because of our political system?
Not because of our political system, but rather I think because of the policies and the inability of our political system to correct the problems. I think I mean, this is just my subjective conclusion, but I honestly think it would require at this point a congressional, I'm sorry, a constitutional amendment. So, and that's not going to happen.
Working on that too.
A constitutional amendment to get money out of politics.
Yes.
I would. Yeah, that would be a great start. If they could do that, I would be astonished. Would be.
Oh yeah, to plug this one, it's a TYT pack. It's called Wolf Pack, and it's just one of several. We already have 3 states that have passed the resolution for a constitutional amendment.
Oh, okay.
We're making progress on it. Yeah.
So how many more you need? Like 20? No, 34.
30 something. I think it's 2/3 of the states.
Okay.
And then you force a constitutional conference or whatever it's called.
Yeah, convention. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, 3. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's like Vermont, I think California, and then like one other state I can't remember.
Yeah. I would say money out of politics would be a great amendment. I would say stop the revolving door bureaucrats in regulatory agencies being connected to corporations, which would deprive them of their property, essentially. So that would require a constitutional amendment, I think. But you could say, look, if you want to be a bureaucrat, you can't be associated with a private entity.
Right.
I'd make that one, and then I'd say might as well do the right to vote while we're at it.
Yeah.
I give you all that. Is it now that there's states that are always going to be red? That they're always going to go one way?
No, I don't think there are any states that will always be red.
No,
like Texas?
It depends on policy. Depends on federal policies.
Really? You think Texas has a chance of being Democratic ever again?
Texas used to be blue.
Yeah. In
LBJ?
Yeah, to get back to like the original thing, like all the problems we're seeing nowadays with how the corporations and the billionaires and the revolving doors and our crumbling infrastructure, I think from my point of view, the root cause of that, those are all just results of the first major problem, and the root problem is when we cut funding for education, when we eliminated all of that. And we have a generation of people that are literally being taught that Moses wrote the Constitution.
Right. In Texas, they took pains to adjust the election map so it's always a Republican outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that correlate with money?
Well, that doesn't necessarily correlate with money. You're talking about gerrymandering for congressional districts? Is that what you're talking about?
Sure.
That's what he was talking about.
What I think the generally accepted outcome of gerrymandering is it creates ideological polarization in the districts within which the gerrymandering occurs. So, as an example, if the only, like say I'm a congressman and the only person who's going to beat me in it, my district, say, is 60% Republican, and I get pretty good turnout all the time. And so my only fear of somebody who's going to beat me is going to be in the primary, and typically their concern is that they're going to beat them from the right if I'm a Republican. So yeah, so what'll happen is I'll go into Congress. I have to go up for election every 2 years, and in the interim, I'm going to vote for some really wacky fucking shit that I think
Gets me
is
over the
gonna.
top. Gets me over.
Well, it doesn't necessarily get you over, but what it does is it prevents a potential attack, a potential rhetorical attack from somebody on your right saying, well, he loves Obama because he wanted Sandy Hook, he wanted to make assault weapons illegal, so
Right.
bitch. Something like that. So that creates polarization in ideological, whatever, an
Yeah,
ideology, political ideology.
I can explain the gerrymandering
Sure.
a little better probably. Basically, like you'll have like the border, and what it is you're redrawing the borders. And let's say you have one district that's 70% Republican voting. Oh gosh, wait and close that door. Can you turn that off? I'll turn it on. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
I don't mind.
Tower turned off. And so you got one that's like say 70% votes Republican, and the next district over on the other side of the border is 52% Democratic voters. So when you redraw the lines, you take some of those Democrats and put them into the Republican district, and then you flip the Democrat district to Republican, while you still only lose maybe 5%. You go from 70% Republican in the original district to 60%.
Right.
So that's what the redrawing the districts does.
So let's say the Republicans, of course, they have the strategy to lock up every state legislature as far as, getting them all Republicans. I mean, should we pass some law to prevent them doing that, to have fair redistricting maps? I mean, in Texas, they took it to court. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some states have attempted to prevent gerrymandering. As a matter of fact, Illinois was suing. It was a referendum. They're trying to get it on the ballot as a referendum, but the problem with it is when you say make a law to prevent that, they both benefit from it. So it's a fixed game. The Republicans benefit from it, and in the situation that Lou was talking about, where they actually do the functional gerrymandering, the Democrats benefit from it too. They say, in most cases, there was a who was that fella, Dennis Kucinich, I think, who actually lost his district in a gerrymandering situation not too long ago. But for the most part, and the individuals may not benefit from it. The individual politicians sometimes don't benefit from it. But on a whole, the parties benefit from it because, just like Lou said, they'll carve out a Republican neighborhood and they'll give that to the Republicans, and then the Democrats will carve one out for themselves. So the idea of making a legislature-centric piece of legislation that would prevent that is not going to happen. It's
Okay, so money still is more important than gerrymandering, as far as
Gerrymandering has an effect on Congress, the House of Representatives.
Okay.
Gerrymandering is really not. It doesn't have much of an effect on the Senate, and it doesn't have an effect at all on the presidential election.
What does affect the Senate? Money?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gotta have cash.
Or more family connections? That there's a sort of old boys club for the Senate.
I think it's money. All money on that one.
Yeah.
There was some senator I remember. It's like he really didn't do much, but he was the son of another senator. It was like a family affair. I guess the Bushes, of course, you could say that.
There's families that have always been in American politics. It's the Bushes. Before that, they were called the Prescotts, and now we have the Clintons, and you have the Rockefellers and the Kennedys.
Right.
They've always been there. So there is a little bit. What's that called? Nepotism, I think.
Well, okay. Well, look at even our presidential. Now we're going back to Clinton.
Oh, hell no.
Bush, Clinton, Bush, Clinton.
Yeah, hell no.
I mean, that is a problem, isn't it, right now in our political system?
Yeah, it's oligarchy, I guess. I mean, we have these royal families.
What's your take, Green? That we have royal families in America that, usually end up in the positions of most power.
Oh yeah, big time.
And I mean, the French had a solution to that, called the Reign of Terror. You think America will ever come to those, point?
Even if it does, the families will still be there.
Like a reaction against the aristocracy?
It would really depend on what set it off.
Like a collapse, financial collapse.
We're already collapsed. No one's looking at it, because China's still sending us all of our toilet paper and toys.
So, Pyong, is that viable that we could have a collapse, we just don't know it?
Could have what kind of? What do you mean? Could have
A financial collapse?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And we just don't know it.
I think that a lot of people know it. I mean, look at you know what quantitative easing is?
Yeah, QE2.
Yeah, so that's the window's all the way open, and interest rates are at zero, and they have to, they're increasing the bond yields by purchasing bonds, putting money into the bond market to push people out of the bond market and into the the stock market. If that were to end, and God forbid they would raise interest rates to something above zero, there would be, I guess, a crash. There would literally be a stock market crash because the money it's free money right now. You'd be an idiot not to put money in the stock market if you can borrow it for free and get a return on it. But it doesn't help us citizens. It helps the people who play the stock market.
I see.
The people that can afford to borrow money for free.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, so we've ascertained that our country is being destroyed by those who have the most money in it. So should we not force distribution
We've
for the
actually
benefit of our country?
we've actually been easing that way just marginally. That's why people say we're not on a downward plunge right now, even though I still think we are. The upper bracket tax rate has increased slightly. It needs to be at 95% for a while at least, and it's still under 30%, I think.
So, Pyong, are we redistributing income? Really?
No. Well, I mean, the consumers are driving consumption, which a lot of that money flows out of the United States, but it doesn't matter because it comes back in the form of investment capital into our bond markets or our stock market, whatever. So in the grand scheme of things, GDP is still peachy, but there's a deficiency in the middle class. Politicians won't correct that because every politician, if there is one trend that I would describe as having the flavor of a plutocracy, I would say that it is this fact that it costs so much money to run for political office. I don't know how much it costs for senator in Illinois. I would estimate probably between 8 and 10 million, maybe more, maybe up to 20 million. I'm not sure. But in order to get that money, you have to depend upon bundlers. And the last election cycle for governor, there was constant advertising. So who knows how much that's going to cost. But in order to qualify for that money, when you go up to a bundler and say, I'm thinking about running, they have a checklist that they go through and they say, do you agree with this and this and this and this and this? So even if you had a mind to solve some of these problems, the actual scope of practical solutions that you could pursue and maintain your career as a politician would be extremely limited. So that's why I say that.
Okay, does it make sense in a country of 300 million to have this much money in our politics? Doesn't it make sense?
No. And
fuck no.
That's what the constitutional amendment is all about. It would make all elections publicly funded, so no one candidate would have more money than any other one. So the candidates actually would have to work for the will of the people to get their vote instead of just having corporations give it all to them.
Yeah, that is so ridiculously fucked up. That Citizens United decision is they've fucked up before. The Supreme Court has fucked up before, but I've never seen anything that bad before, honestly. I don't mean to say that I'm like a Supreme Court scholar, but that was you can take the Korematsu decision and fucking throw that in the garbage, man. That was the major fuck up, Citizens United. And then they had another one recently, McCullough versus FEC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one.
No, please.
That was the aggregate total. Some fucking knucklehead, hedge fund manager or something, wanted to max out. He said, in light of Citizens United, it's a violation of my free speech, my political free speech, to tell me that I can't, max out my contributions for each and every person in Congress. And they maintained the individual limits. Okay, so I think it's still I don't remember what the individual limit was. I don't even want to say because I'm really not sure what the individual limit is. But used to be that you reached a limit of like, I don't know, so let's just pretend it's $32,000.
Okay.
So you could max out the contribution to a certain number of politicians. Now, because of the decision with this McCutcheon, I think his name is McCutcheon versus FEC, he can give the maximum contribution to each and every politician, each and every one.
Yes.
So he's giving money to entire caucuses now. Talk about fucked up. I mean, so it's not getting better; it's getting worse.
Yeah,
Right.
and one of the ways it got worse is if you are a company owner. These company owners were taking the list of all of their employees, like Social Security numbers, and donating money for each employee they had.
Yes.
So it's like if you had 500 employees, the company owner was donating as 500 people to whatever he wanted.
That's incredible. I'd like to welcome Shara and Kiz to our hangout. Kiz, have you been listening or you just showed up?
I just showed up. I was working on a video, and then I saw that this was up and joined. So I don't know what's happening yet. I apologize for that.
We're
Yeah.
talking what is wrong with American politics, and we arrived at the fact that there's too much money infused in our political system. What's your take on that, Kiz?
Well, I think there's a lot of corruption. I think there's a lot of cronyism. I think there are too many special interest groups that influence politics. I think we've moved away from the government being for the people.
Okay, and it's now for the few, the ultra-rich.
Pretty much.
Doesn't it make sense for the ultra-rich to, run our system?
No.
Why not? Isn't this country all about money?
I suppose if you want to look at it that way, but this country was, I don't know, you could, that's what it's turned into, but that's not what it really should be. The government should be for the people. The country should be something the government should be something that tries to make everybody's lives decent, better.
Instead of just a few.
Yeah.
If you were ultra-rich, Kiz, wouldn't you like to run this country?
I
In the manner that you saw fit, like, you own it.
If I was rich and had that kind of libertarian mindset, I guess so.
Oh, a libertarian mindset? Is that what it is? I thought it was called oligarchical mindset.
Yeah. It's the anarcho-capitalistic sort of thing.
Sort of thing. Shira, do you have anything to contribute? You like the way this country's going?
I just follow the crowd.
Yeah. Excuse me. Something one can do. How about you, Green? Does it make sense that these rich people want to run us, tell us what to do?
I don't think anybody should be running anyone.
Why not?
I think we have to learn how to run ourselves first before we can even do that.
Okay. Do you worry what your neighbors are eating tonight?
Actually, I do.
Why?
Because it's
Is that
going
a
to
pure altruism, or
no, it's going to affect me later on. Because if they don't have enough food to eat,
I thought it was something like megalomaniac there. If you're worrying what they're eating,
no.
how they're eating it.
I'm concerned about the people's diet now, like what they're eating, with consuming large amounts of sugar.
Right. The
So
health.
the health of an individual is actually beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so you consider our society as a body that should be healthy.
You can look at it that way. Hiccups.
Kids, does that make sense to you? Our society is a body that should be kept healthy.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if that can be taken to a bad extreme to where, people won't do anything that could be considered unhealthy. I mean, even bungee jumping, parachute jumping, riding on a motorcycle, doing things that are dangerous.
Well, banning
if
soda
we,
pop, banning the 40-ounce big gulp soda pop. That was one they tried in New York.
I think legislating that sort of thing is terrible.
Why?
Yeah.
It's for the benefit of our society. It's for the body.
I disagree with that concept.
There's one thing. If there's one thing we should have learned by now in America, is that prohibition always gets you the opposite result that you want. So.
Okay, so don't tell the people that it's wrong for them to, drink 40-ounce big gulps.
Educate people and then let the individual make the decision. And that way they can take responsibility for their actions by knowing full well what the consequences are.
It's rather interesting. This subject actually fits into the video that's processing for me right now in the video editor, and that's how I won't say most, a large percentage of cigarette smokers are extremely inconsiderate of others, and they don't think about the fact that anytime anyone gets near a cloud of smoke, as soon as the other person touches it, they stink like cigarettes.
Okay.
And people don't think about that, and because of that element, I mean, you can't wait by a bus stop. You can't go into almost any business if you're in a big city. You definitely can't go to a bar because everyone will be crowded right near the door, puffing away on their cigarettes. Then there's people that are real assholes there'll be this crowd of people, and they'll be puffing away on their cigarette, rocking right through a crowd of people, and it's just like, well, you've just made everyone in that crowd smell like your cigarettes. Something like that directly affects other people.
Right.
That's different than what someone puts into their own body, or something like, colognes or perfumes that only affect what someone. I mean, you'll smell it for a period of time, but as soon as you walk away, you don't smell it anymore, and it doesn't get on you. Things like that kind of make one want to have some sort of more rules for something like cigarettes.
Like I said, I don't. There needs to be rules and regulations for some things, but I think when you're looking at like issues like this, I think education and then public scorn is what's needed. Like, you see the commercials on how nasty the stuff is, and then you scorn the people that are violating the social norm. I think that takes care of the problem for the most part.
Pyong, should they have limited big tobacco?
Do what now?
Did we have had litigation against big tobacco like we did to limit its unhealthiness against our society? Isn't that what we did against big tobacco, because they were like the #1 cancer-inducing substance in America?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the key considerations in the size of the awards was that the tobacco industry misled people. They knew it was a carcinogen, obviously, and they also knew that nicotine was addictive and all these things. And then there was some aspect of it where they advertised it to kids. Should we gone after them? Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Or not? Shouldn't we just warn people? Just say, hey, cigarette smoking is bad, and just let.
Well, there are, in my personal opinion, it depends upon the item. There are some items that are so hyper toxic that I think it's important to take a paternalistic view and to regulate them just out of hand. Like some of the. Have you ever seen some of these fuels that they use in the when they go up in the Challenger, and they'll put out a satellite that's supposed to operate for 30 years, and some of the fuels that they put in there are so toxic that it touch a person and kill them.
Right.
So that type of stuff, or the ownership of tigers.
Right.
It depends on the. It certainly depends on the substance. So.
Can I jump in on the cigarette thing one more time?
Sure.
On that one, yes, we should go after. We should have, and it was right to go after the companies. And it wasn't even about. I mean, because it wasn't even about them being dishonest or anything. That was a part of the reason to go after them. But I studied environmental policy. That's my major. So the point of it is, it's called externalities. The tobacco companies were not paying for the cancer treatment or the burials or any of the externalities. It was doing real harm that cost real money and real lives, and they weren't paying any of that expense. So the reason we went after them for, politically, was to make them pay for the damage they were doing.
Kiss.
One of the things I hate most about cigarette smoking is it seems to be like the only socially accepted littering. You can just chuck a cigarette butt anywhere you want.
Oh no, that pisses me off. That pisses me off.
Me too.
I'm a smoker, and that has pissed me off from ever since I've been a smoker. People that flick their butts out, I can't stand people that do that.
There's one more thing. I think the ingredients in cigarettes should be heavily regulated, so they can't put a bunch of really nasty stuff in it. In most of the name brand cigarettes, not the ones I usually don't find it in the ones that people have to roll themselves and it comes in a pouch, but like the name brand, Marlboro, Camel, stuff like that. There is a smell that's in almost all of those that's just like some of the same smell you smell in Raid Roach Killer.
Probably formaldehyde.
Okay, but kids, you're libertarians, so shouldn't we just tell the people it's bad instead of actually crack down on the cigarette companies?
I'm not a libertarian, but if I was, I guess I would probably think that. But I think I believe in regulating the what they put in them for sure, at the very least. And I think they should have to list all the ingredients. In fact, I think almost any product that's out there, they should have to list all of the ingredients, and they can't put, even in food items, they shouldn't be able to put spices or natural ingredient. They should actually have to list everything.
All right.
That's also one of the reasons that criminalizing hard drugs is kind of dumb, because then you can't control what's in it. They can just be cut with anything the dealer wants to use.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, let me ask you guys this. Let's suppose that we discovered that soda pop is just as bad as cigarettes.
Thursday on the open sea, and the day was a big one. First order of business, waking up with a splash.
Shira.
Okay, soda pop. So we should take steps to limit, get rid of soda pop.
Well, I mean, if they were actually able to find that, but I mean, I don't see them finding something like that. If they found that, then they would have to say the same about a whole shit ton of other foods.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Michelle Obama was harping on people, how, sick, school lunches were and how bad soda pop is? And she faced ridicule because of that.
Yeah, I think it was something to do with that.
Yeah, so let's just, get rid of soda pop. It's a good idea.
I mean, I don't want to be talking too much, but I want everybody else to put out their ideas too. But there's two things in soda pop that you got to look at for health. What do you call it?
Concern. Health concern.
Yeah, health concerns. It's the kind of sugar and the carbonation. If if it's regular sugar or even corn syrup, you only have the same health concerns as you do for like eating cookies as far as diabetes and whatnot. High fructose corn syrup is consumed first by cancer cells, so that's a bad thing. It means you're feeding your cancer before any of the rest of your body gets anything useful out of it.
Do you have a citation for that?
Oh gosh, no, it's all from college.
Well, I know that we have an obesity epidemic going on in the country, right? Okay, so I mean, we should take steps to reduce fat people.
There's how you implement that is really tricky.
What do you think, Pyong? We should take steps to reduce fat people?
What do you mean, exterminate them?
Well, I mean, you know, of course that's one extreme part of the spectrum, but we should make them start losing weight.
Oh, really?
People of fitness
I
tax credit?
You know, I think that I hesitate to say anything in that vein because to me that sounds a lot like propaganda.
It does? That there's an obesity epidemic?
Oh, yeah. Well, sure.
Translate me, Eric. Translate me.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
is that such a sensitive subject that there's an obesity epidemic in America?
What does that mean? Obesity epidemic? Like people are catching obesity? Fuck, stay in your house if you've.
I think it's something like that. That
America's
school kids are too fat.
Yeah.
Okay, so school kids are too fat. I'd rather have them fat than wanting for food or in a state of famine.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I understand. Okay, you know, we have legitimate concerns. Parents should have legitimate concerns for their kids. You don't want them to have diabetes or heart disease.
Right. Diabetes.
You know, at 8. Okay, but obesity epidemic, I think, is hyperbolic. Obesity epidemic, I think, is. I have a sneaking suspicion it's kind of bullshit that's established, you know, that's put out by the insurance companies to justify increasing rates, changing policies. They're like, oh, these fucking fat people, they're killing us here. They're raising rates.
Right.
We don't want to raise your insurance premiums, but these fucking fat people. If we just didn't have to deal with the fucking fat people, we'd. Oh, and the immigrants going to emergency rooms too. Those.
That's true. Okay, Kiz. Is it all propaganda, or is there some?
Well, I mean, I think we need to be more educated about what we're eating in general. I mean, if someone wants to be fat, and I'm one of those freaky people who like being fat, and have actually tried to be heavy, you know, people should know what they're doing. You know what I mean? If people are getting fat and they don't know why they're getting fat, that's a problem.
Okay.
That's an issue. People need to learn more about nutrition in general. People need to learn what our body needs, what our body doesn't need. You know, that sort of thing is really important. But to claim that there's an obesity epidemic, well, you know, if we try to encourage people to read the ingredients, if ingredients were actually listed fully on products, instead of all this stuff, I mean, they can put just natural ingredient, and you don't even know what it is. You know, we're more conscious of what we're doing. I think most of these issues would fall by the wayside. I mean, there's plenty of people that are heavy, that are way more healthy than some people that are really, really skinny. So I mean, you know, we also don't shove forth how bad being, you know, undernourished is. We don't really discuss that. It's all about obesity epidemic. You know.
All right, so let's say fat people...
letting your child go undernourished is seen as a form of child abuse.
Yes.
Negligence.
Yes. Very good point, Warren. Okay, should we ever, you know, let fat people get in trouble? I mean, should we call them into account for their fatness? Just for the sake of our society? No. For the whole? No?
No.
Why is that such a bad idea?
Because it's not really their fault. There's different reasons for people to be obese. Some people, even if they have the healthiest diet on the planet and they're doing everything right, they're just genetically predisposed to be heavy.
It's none of government's business to be worried about how healthy the body is.
No, It is a government problem. We're putting chemicals in our foods. Like, there is now bacteria that you get in processed food that puts out a chemical that makes you want to eat more. So we
it's
are,
like nicotine, right?
yeah, we're eating foods that make us eat more foods, even when we don't need it. There's chemicals that make us retain or build more fat. And then education on a proper diet would actually help. So education would help. Oh, Martin wanted to.
Go ahead, Martin.
Oh, no, my cat sneezed.
Oh.
Well, okay, Lindsay, why don't you chime in? Do you have anything to add, please?
I don't know. You keep on talking about America. I live up here in Canada. Everything's awesome up here.
They don't worry about anything as silly as an obesity epidemic.
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about
So,
it.
kids, if they start cracking down on fat people, you want to go to Canada. It's a possibility. Didn't the first lady want to crack down on fat people?
No, she was trying to be more regulatory on the food, but it wasn't saying that we should cut down on fat people. That's not what she was saying.
That wasn't what she was saying.
I think it pertained to schools in particular, not like everybody.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, they did that here. They took out all the junk food from schools.
Should that be allowable, kids?
Can't buy pot
Yes.
in
Yes.
school anymore
That's
either.
I think that's a smart idea to have. I mean, if we're going to, if it's going to be, taxpayers are paying for it, and it's something that we're supposed to have a healthful mindset and,
Right.
and promote healthful eating, then having the schools only serving healthy foods is a good idea.
Yeah, and I tell you what, one benefit I got from it personally was I started thinking about it. I started looking, because I love candy, I love chocolate and stuff, and I started looking at the labels when that stuff was going on. I mean, I just thought of this, but it actually did occur. I started looking at the labels, and I saw how many calories was in a candy bar, and I was like, holy shit, So I stopped eating candy bars. I mean, what I'll do is I still eat chocolate, but I eat a little bit if I want it, and then if I have a sweet tooth or something, I'll try to eat fruit, like tangerines or pears or bananas or something.
So yeah, society, our government helps shape your eating.
Well, it did work a little bit. It helped.
Okay, let me ask you this, Fyong. Should fat people ever apply for minority status?
What the fuck? No.
Why not? They are a minority, aren't they?
Are they if they're discriminated against, I guess maybe there's if they're discriminated against and it causes damage to them, then I think they should try maybe to.
Like when they ride an airplane, they have to pay for 2 seats.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know I don't know how I feel about that. I've never really thought about that.
As far as that, it might make some people angry, but I don't know if the seats are a certain size and someone literally takes up 2 of the seats, I mean they can't put another person in there. So, if I end up getting that heavy to where I take up 2 seats, I would expect to have to pay for 2 seats.
You would think it would be fair. You wouldn't complain and say, "Hey, I'm a single person. I don't have to pay for 2 seats."
Well, I mean, I think the seats are just are a little bit small to begin with.
They are very small.
So if they did use this to where they wanted to give an excuse to make the seats even smaller,
right,
then that would be wrong. But I mean, if they're the same size as they've been for decades, and someone has to take up 2 seats in order to sit down, then that's another seat that could have been filled, that could have been the $350 and up price that it would normally be. So
yeah, I think.
What is the limit for someone who, like, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna go by pounds? Like, if you are over 400 pounds, you have to purchase
2 seats.
this. Because I at one point weighed over 400 pounds, but I didn't look it. I looked like I weighed only 200 pounds.
Well, I don't think it should be by weight. It should just, I don't know, if they really want to test something like that, they should have a test seat for you to sit down in, and if you take up more than one of the seats, then you'd have to be charged for more than one seat. It would be the actual size of the person, not the weight, not how they carry it, none of that. It would be how much room they actually take on the plane.
Wouldn't it be easy if we just had to register if we were obese or not?
No.
No.
Yikes.
No.
That's horrible.
To register if we were
I'm
obese.
obese or not.
I think we've tried.
No, I think that it's a price point that's established, and the difference is it passage or is it volume? I think is what it really boils down to. And I think they've successfully modified. I think initially it probably was passage, analogous to your ticket for a train or a boat or something like that. And they have successfully modified the expectations of the people who purchase their service into they're actually transacting for a certain amount of limited volume. And if you take up too much of that, then you have to pay extra, which is, that's just the way they've done it.
So you wouldn't characterize that as discrimination?
I don't know. I mean, it just sure as heck doesn't seem fair, does it? Just because somebody's a little bigger, they have to pay double? I don't know.
Well, look at the cargo end of it. What does it go? What do they charge for cargo? Is it by mass or volume?
Well, yeah.
Because the cargo has a lot more weight than all the people on the plane.
Sure.
Yeah.
Probably some combination thereof, right? Because I'm not sure. I don't know.
But I think
it'd probably be a combination. You could send or ship an airplane full of aerogel. It weighs next to nothing, so it'll probably cost you a lot.
But I go with Kazoo's thing. Like, if you take up 2 seats, you should pay for 2 seats because they're charging per seat for humans.
Right.
Our country is very concerned about the health of its body, of people. Correct? That's why our healthcare system is so outstanding.
Oh, God. My personal health care is outstanding. I don't know about all of you in America.
That's funny.
Well,
That's
we care
funny,
about what
but
you're
no.
eating.
That's really funny because I heard that if you have cancer or like you get like run over or something like that, and you don't have health insurance, that a hospital will not serve you.
What? Where's this?
In
Well,
some of the states.
They have something called a Hippocratic Oath, Lindsay.
Yeah,
Well,
hospitals.
it's not so much Hippocratic Oath, but there are laws that
Will they leave you in debt though? Will you be in debt forever?
they
Yeah.
will charge you, but
They
they
will.
will also go ahead.
Oh no, I think we were both on saying the same thing.
Right. Okay. But
What
yes,
if you're poor though and you can't afford it?
well, hello bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's like inhumane.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
wrong.
Yeah.
But we don't have a single payer kind of a system here. So unfortunately,
I'm a part of the population that does have single payer. I got VA medical, and then you got Medicare, and those programs need to be expanded to everybody.
fully agree.
Okay. If we
I agree too.
if we agreed, to let our government, we do whatever our government asks us to do if we get health care, would that be a fair trade?
Well, it depends on what they're asking.
Well,
I mean, if it has to do with just like paperwork, you got to fill out this paperwork, fine. But if it's saying you have to live your life like this, then fuck no.
Yeah, if you look at my YouTube name, Escape from LA, they were making salt and red meat illegal. So obviously those are bad ideas. It's like making alcohol illegal. It's not going to get you what you want.
Your proposition puts us on the hook for an infinite liability with a finite benefit. There.
With a finite benefit. Okay. Infinite liability with a finite benefit. Okay. Why is that benefit so small for with liability? I mean, if they assured us health, the
Well, but
government.
they can't assure us health,
Okay.
can they?
Okay. Well,
I
let's
mean,
say this: they
unless you
offer
clone
us
it or
health
something.
care. They offer us health care
Uh,
as long as we do what they ask, eat what they ask, behave the way they ask.
See, I think you're looking at the regulations on the wrong end. You don't regulate the individuals, you regulate the companies.
All right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Pyong? That it's not our fault that we're fat; it's the companies.
what? What are you talking fat, dude? We
Well, explain your point, Lou. Explain. It's not incumbent upon the individual. It's incumbent
It's-
upon the corporations, the food
Right,
manufacturers.
Yeah, it's not that the individual is not responsible. The individual ultimately is responsible for what the individual does, but we have this thing called freedom and democracy that we tend to value highly. But corporations are not people, and we can regulate the corporations so as they are not putting poisons in our food. So if we have healthy food, then it's up to the individual whether or not they eat healthy or not.
What do you think, Pyong?
yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Well,
So,
isn't that to some degree a form of prohibition on certain ingredients?
right, no more candy bars.
No, it wouldn't be like candy. It's like the thing I was talking about. Like we could ban trans fats, ban high fructose corn syrup. That wouldn't change anything. Our food prices would go up a little bit, but it's your choice whether or not you want to pay the real price for what you're eating, you know?
Well, I mean, there's another side to this too. Is like a long time ago they were trying to suggest that shortening and margarine is way healthier than butter, but now they
Right.
found out that that's a lie, and that well, not necessarily a lie, but that was
Incorrect.
it was incorrect, and now that so if we start banning certain ingredients, and then we could later find out, oh, I guess those weren't that bad, and these are actually worse,
Right.
Okay.
that could lead into quite a situation.
If you use what the government standards are that they are in the books, the laws are in the books, we just don't freaking enforce them. But the government technically cannot legally make a decision without adequately evaluating all relevant data. They call it best available science.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of negotiation there. Pyong, what's your favorite candy bar?
Oh, damn, that's a tough one.
Snickers?
No, fuck Snickers. Too much nougat. I would say Kit Kats are awesome.
Kit Kats.
Kit
Okay.
Kat.
They
Yeah.
changed the ingredients of Kit Kats. Can you tell the difference?
Probably not. I don't really eat them that much because, like I said, man, I try to.
The
eat
government
shit.
takes it upon themselves that you eat healthier, so they change the ingredients. Can you taste the difference?
I don't know. Can I? This is your world.
Let's say they change the what is a Kit Kat? It's crispy
Chocolate?
wafers.
Yeah, crispy.
What
wafers.
if they put it in dark chocolate instead of milk
They,
chocolate?
no, they
Oh,
replace,
I'd eat that.
the crunchiness with green beans. Could you tell
Oh,
the
those
taste of difference?
bastards!
That's your government
Frankly,
helping you eat
I've got-
better, Pyong.
Break out Lady Guillotine.
I've got an example that actually did happen. McDonald's and their fries.
Okay.
They were originally using lard, and now they use some other stuff. I don't know exactly what it is, but it radically changed the taste of the fries.
Their fries used to taste a lot better. Okay, so you guys are telling me that, yeah, these are all good things that the government's doing, but, when it comes to your Kit Kat or to your McDonald's French fries, it's not. I mean, help me understand.
It's because they don't use animal fat anymore to deep fry them in.
Yeah, because that's bad.
Yeah.
But delicious.
Yeah, but
My position is on ultra toxic, ultra hazardous things. Paternalism is okay with regard to ultra toxic, ultra hazardous things. Paternalism with regard to
bars.
individual choices like candy or exercise or whether or not you eat burgers all the time. No, I don't think that should be regulated. Because and it goes back to one of my you might call it a rule or a guideline or something. If the government makes a rule where they're going to restrict something, if they're going to make a law, it should be effective and it should be narrowly tailored to accomplish a specific purpose. And when you're talking about these individual choices, I don't think that the ultimate benefit, is really that important. And I don't think that by putting laws in the books that modify these individual choices, I don't think it would really have a significant effect, to be honest with you.
That's almost like an idyllic outlook. I mean, our laws today are like Obamacare.
Okay.
I mean, you have to get out of your dreamland there. How much does it cost to live in that dreamland you live in there, Pyong?
What do you mean, a dreamland where rules are...
We have direct rules that have limited application, opposed to Obamacare.
Dude, I don't think you know what you're talking about.
You don't think dude. So Obamacare is direct application.
If you told me I'm living in a dream world, yeah. Okay.
Well, doesn't it sound like it?
What's the full name? What's the full name of Obamacare, Big Daddy?
The HCA. The HCA.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Okay.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, like, HCA is
the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. Patients.
Just
Go ahead.
A blob of laws. A blob of litigations.
Okay. No, I think I actually do kind of agree with you, but no, most of the laws we make, they are intended to have a realistic effect.
Okay.
That's why we don't have laws that most of the time where they restrict an individual's right to choose, to eat hamburgers or that kind of crazy shit like that. I mean, what happened to Bloomberg's soda ban?
Got knocked out.
Yeah, how long did that last? So,
What do you think, Kiz? I mean, we have to do away with Obamacare because it's just too sloppy.
Well, I think it was a sad compromise for what we really should have been going for. I think we should have went for full-fledged socialized medicine, as far as I'm concerned.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of countries who have it.
Yeah, every other country in the world almost.
Right.
To a degree.
But won't we have to ration our medicine? Because, that's what Canada does, ration.
Propaganda bullshit.
I mean, there's the advantage to when the government does it is the government doesn't care if it loses money. When it comes to being privatized like it is now, all those companies want to make as much money as they can, so they're going to soak the consumers. At least with the government way of handling it, they're not going to soak the consumers because they don't care if they lose money.
And you know why that's a great point too, because and I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the reasons why I say that's propaganda bullshit, ration healthcare. You know what a free market system can never do with healthcare? Serve everyone. There must be scarcity. There must be. So when some asshole looks you in the eye and tells you we shouldn't have single-payer system because it would mean rationing healthcare, you tell them to fuck off. And you ask them, well, can a market system facilitate healthcare for everybody, equal healthcare for everybody? And if they say yes, they're a fucking liar, because there has to be scarcity. So that's all bullshit. And then ask Lindsay, right? She's got Canadian system. Ask her if she's got a problem with it.
Lindsay, do you have any problem with your system?
Well, no, not really.
Do you have to wait for your medicines, and you have to wait for your appointments, and you have to, if you need an X-ray, you have to wait weeks for it?
Yeah, because, well, kind of. It depends if you're on priority or not. My health is slightly better than everyone else's healthcare because I'm on disability.
Right.
So I go through a different system. Like, I find it stupid that I am getting tested for sleep apnea, and I could have got tested for sleep apnea months ago. But
Right.
instead, I have to go through AISH and go through their clinic, which is in another city. I have to pay money to go to another city and get tested there instead of getting tested in my own city.
What do you make of that, Pyong?
It's a reasonable complaint.
Rationing?
But
Hey, I tell you what, I would.
because it's free. I don't have to pay for my equipment that I'm getting. I don't have to drop $3,000.
Yeah, fuck. Okay, I'll take the bus to the other city. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, is it that or is it me? Like I told you, I paid $150 for a bottle of Tussinex.
Right. And
I mean, are you kidding me?
$50 for
Fuck,
aspirins and shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty.
Is it live or is it Memorex? Okay, sorry.
All righty. So we're being hosed by our oligarchy here in America and in every rich hole. I mean, you know, they want us to give up our candy bars, and then they won't give us health care, and then they, you know, reduce our mental health services. This wouldn't have happened if Bush wasn't elected, correct?
What?
Because wasn't
No,
Clinton at the pinnacle of our country? The Clinton
there's
administration?
no president that's been the pinnacle of the country. That's just a false statement.
That's a false statement? Okay, when do you think what the pinnacle of our country was, Kiz?
There is no president that represents the pinnacle of our country. There is no actual pinnacle of our country. That's
Well,
that
we
would
on
be,
an upward
that would depend
trajectory,
on, that's totally subjective.
Okay, you think that's subjective? I mean, you see nothing wrong with our society?
I see things that are wrong with our society, but that doesn't mean that there is.
When did they go bad?
There's no specific. There's been a bunch of bad things and good things about this country that have constantly evolved and changed through time. I mean, like let's say look at the 50s, for instance. Look at the 1950s. There's people that will say, oh well, look at all there was more, people were more
Quality of life.
People would talk
American
about
dream.
more quality of life, but then you look at the flip side of it, and you had McCarthyism, and you had all this,
racism?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a trade-off in some way. So I mean, things are always changing. Things could always be better, but things could always be worse.
Okay, are we living better than they did now?
In some areas, yes. In most areas, I'd say yes, but there's some not. But there was also less people then, too.
So we shouldn't even be whining, right? We are living better than those people.
Well, like I said, we could always be living better. So there should always be a push for us to make life better.
Lindsay, do you think Americans whine too much about candy bar? Lindsay, are you there? Lindsay,
I don't know.
You don't think we
think
whine too much?
Wine? I don't know. I'm pretty sure the people on Google Plus aren't a really good example of
The length of our Hangouts, you think they whine about? Well, folks,
I think the people on the internet aren't a very good example of people from their countries because we're all a little kooky, I think.
oh,
Hey,
I don't.
Wait a minute, though. Wait a minute, though. I mean, the people that are on the internet are still people. They're still. I mean, who are we supposed to have representing us? Should we have special interest groups or what?
Yeah.
Today I had someone say to me that they had a pool to see what religion I would be next, and I told my friend that.
Oh, I wanted in on that.
That's mean. And that why do I subject myself to people like that?
Are they still taking bets on that? Do you know? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But Lindsay, it's like you are the excitement in our life, so.
Oh my God.
We want to know, if it's going to be Islam, Mormonism, Scientology.
Okay, Mormonism, no. Scientology, never.
Pastafarian.
Pastafarian. Well, folks, I just want to thank you for this excellent hangout about Does America Matter Anymore? I ask all listeners to tune in next time and have a good weekend. Have a good week. Take care. Bye-bye.